The faded pink backpack emerged first among the dry leaves, still recognizable even after 8 long years lost in the woods. The hiker who discovered Mia Garcia's remains on a September afternoon in 2023 never imagined he was about to solve one of the city's most painful disappearance cases, bringing answers that a desperate family had searched for almost a decade. Along with the backpack she carried on the last day she was seen alive, investigators found other personal belongings of Mia that would tell the terrible story of her final moments. The discovery would not only end years of agonizing uncertainty, but also reveal a truth so shocking that it would shake the entire community to its foundations. If you're new to our channel, don't forget to subscribe and activate notifications, because today's case will show you how 8 years of tireless searching finally brought justice for a young woman whose dream was simply to finish high school and go to veterinary college. But the truth about what happened to Mia Garcia on that March day in 2015 was more sinister than anyone could imagine. This is the story of a 16-year-old girl who left for school on an ordinary morning and never returned home, of a family who refused to give up even when everyone else lost hope, and of dark secrets that remained buried in the woods for 8 long years. What really happened to Mia Garcia on her way to school? And why did it take almost a decade for the terrible truth to finally come to light? The answers will shock you. But first, you need to know exactly who Mia Garcia was, because understanding her life is the only way to comprehend the magnitude of what was stolen from her that fateful March morning. Mia Garcia was the type of person who brightened any room just with her presence, and, at 16 years old, she had already won the hearts of everyone who knew her in the small town of Riverside, California. At 5 feet 4 inches tall, with curly brown hair that she always tied in a cheerful ponytail, and brown eyes that sparkled when she talked about her dreams of becoming a veterinarian, Mia had that kind of contagious energy that made people feel better just by being near her. As the youngest of 3 siblings, Mia was the pride and joy of the Garcia family. Her parents, Carlos and Maria Garcia, had immigrated from Mexico in the 1990s with dreams of giving their children a better life, and Mia represented the fulfillment of those dreams. She was an exemplary student at Riverside High School, maintained high grades in all subjects, and actively participated in the science club and volunteer program at the local animal shelter. Mia was our little light, her mother Maria remembers, with tears in her eyes even after so many years. She always woke up singing, always had a word of encouragement for anyone going through difficulties. When she entered a room, it was like the sun had risen inside. Mia's connection with her family was extraordinarily strong, especially with her older brother, Diego, who was 21 years old in 2015. Diego worked as a mechanic in a local shop during the day and attended engineering college at night, and Mia was his greatest admirer and source of motivation. They were more than siblings. They were best friends, confidants, and adventure partners. Mia made me want to be a better person every day, Diego explains, his voice still, choked with emotion. She always said I was her hero, but actually it was the opposite. She inspired me to study more, work harder, never give up on my dreams. When she disappeared, it was like they had torn half of my soul away. Mia's daily routine was as structured as her organized personality. Every weekday, she woke up at 6 in the morning, had breakfast with the family, and left for school at 7:15. Riverside High was only 15 minutes' walk from the Garcia house on Maple Street, a route that Mia had religiously taken for 3 years since she started high school. She always carried her pink backpack, a 15th birthday gift she had specifically chosen because It was impossible to lose a backpack that color, as she used to joke. The backpack was always filled with books, meticulously organized notebooks, and small personal objects that revealed her personality. A family photo, animal stickers, a dog-shaped keychain that Diego had given her, and always an EBE extra snack to share with some classmate who had forgotten to bring food. Mia was one of those people who always thought of others first, remembers her best friend, Sofia Martinez, who had been a classmate since kindergarten. If someone forgot their lunch, she would share hers. If someone didn't understand the subject, she would stay at school helping until they understood. She had this giant heart that didn't fit in her chest. At school, Mia was known not only for her excellent grades, but also for the genuine kindness with which she treated all students, regardless of popularity or social status. Teachers adored her because she asked intelligent questions and always actively participated in classes. Classmates respected her because she never judged anyone and was always willing to help. Her dream of becoming a veterinarian wasn't just a teenage fantasy. It was a genuine passion fueled by years of volunteer work at the local animal shelter. Every Saturday, Mia spent entire mornings caring for abandoned dogs and cats, and she had convinced the whole family to adopt 3 rescued animals over the years. Mia said that animals were the purest beings in the world because they loved unconditionally, recalls Dr. Rebecca Chen, veterinarian at the shelter where Mia volunteered. She had this natural gift for calming even the most traumatized animals. I had no doubt that she would be an extraordinary veterinarian. The Garcia family's weekends were sacred. They always gathered to watch movies, cook traditional Mexican dishes, or simply talk in the backyard of the house. Mia was the center of these gatherings, telling stories from school, making plans for the future, and filling the house with her contagious laughter. March 2015 had begun like any other month for Mia. She was in her sophomore year of high school, maintaining high averages, planning to enroll in summer biology courses, and counting the days until she turned 17 in May. She had just been accepted into a special mentorship program for students interested in veterinary careers, and was more excited than ever about her academic plans. On the night of March 14th, Mia had dinner with the family as always, helped her mother wash the dishes, and spent a few hours studying for a chemistry test. Before sleeping, she texted with Sofia, discussing plans for the prom that would take place in June. Her last messages were about dresses and hairstyles, typical concerns of a normal teenager who had no idea she was living her last hours. Mia was so excited about the prom, Sofia remembers through tears. She had just shown a photo of a blue dress she wanted to buy, and we were making plans to go to the mall on the weekend to try it on. It was such a normal conversation, so full of hope for the future. How could I know it would be the last time I would talk to her? Mia's alarm clock rang at 6 in the morning on March 15th, 2015, exactly as it had rung hundreds of times before. She got up, showered, dressed in jeans, a yellow blouse that was one of her favorites, and white sneakers. She had breakfast with her parents, kissed Diego on the cheek when he left for work, and packed her pink backpack with the day's materials. At 7:15 in the morning, Mia Garcia left home for the last time, waving cheerfully to her mother at the door and shouting, "See you later, Mommy! I love you!" These were the last words her family would hear her say. She had no idea she was walking toward an encounter with evil, nor could she imagine that her pink backpack would become the key to solving her own murder 8 years later. The morning of March 15th, 2015 began like all other mornings in Mia Garcia's perfectly organized life. The sun shone through her bedroom curtains at 6 in the morning when her alarm clock rang, and she got up with the same positive energy that characterized each of her days. In the kitchen, Maria Garcia was preparing breakfast for the family, while Carlos was getting ready for another day of work in construction. Mia came down the stairs humming a song that was playing on the radio, Maria remembers from that last normal breakfast. She always did that, turned the most ordinary mornings into little celebrations. She kissed my face, stole a piece of my toast, and told me about the chemistry test she would take that day. During breakfast, Mia mentally reviewed her day's agenda. First class would be math, then chemistry with the test she had studied for the night before, lunch with Sophia and friends, physical education class, and then biology, her favorite subject. She was particularly excited because the biology teacher, Mrs. Anderson, had promised to start a new unit on animal anatomy, which was directly related to Mia's veterinary dreams. Diego appeared in the kitchen at 7 in the morning, already in uniform for work at the shop. As always, he and Mia exchanged jokes during the few minutes they spent together before he left. That specific morning, they talked about weekend plans. Diego had promised to take Mia to see a movie she wanted to watch at the mall cinema. Our last conversation was about that stupid romantic comedy movie she was dying to see, Diego recalls with a sad smile. I was kind of reluctant because it wasn't my type of movie, but she convinced me with that way of hers. She said I owed her that for helping me with math in college. I could never watch romantic movies again after she disappeared. At 7:10 in the morning, Mia did the final check of her pink backpack. Books organized by subject, notebooks with color codes she had developed, pencils and pens in a special case, and the lunch Maria had prepared, a ham and cheese sandwich, an apple, and homemade cookies. She also carried her cell phone, a wallet with $20 for emergencies, and the house key on a chain with the dog keychain Diego had given her. Mia always checked everything twice before leaving, Carlos observes. She was methodical like that, never forgot anything. That morning she was the same as always, organized, happy, full of plans for the day. At exactly 7:15, Mia said goodbye to her parents with kisses and hugs, shouted a bye to Diego, who had already left, and walked toward the front door. Her last action at home was to grab a denim jacket from the hook at the entrance. March was still a little cold on Riverside mornings. Mia's walk to school always followed the same route. She left Maple Street, turned right on Oak Avenue, walked 6 blocks to Pine Street, and then continued straight until reaching the Riverside High campus. It was a safe route through a quiet residential neighborhood, where she knew many of the neighbors and frequently greeted other families who also had children walking to school. At 7:20 in the morning, Mrs. Henderson, an elderly neighbor who always watered her plants on the porch at that time, waved to Mia as she did every morning. She looked perfectly normal, Mrs. Henderson would later tell the police. Walking at the same pace as always, backpack on her back, looking happy. There was nothing different about that morning. At 7:25, Mia passed by the local bakery, where Mr. Rodriguez, the owner, saw her through the window and waved as he always did. She smiled and waved back, he would recall. Mia always had a smile for everyone. She was a special girl like that. But at 7:30 in the morning, when Mia should have been entering the Riverside High School campus, she simply didn't arrive. Her first class, math with Mr. Johnson, began at 7:45, and for the first time in 3 years of high school, Mia Garcia was not present when roll call was taken. Mr. Johnson initially didn't worry. Students occasionally were late for various reasons. But when Mia also didn't show up for the second class, chemistry, where she had an important test scheduled, he began to find it strange. Mia never missed tests, and certainly would never fail to notify if something prevented her attendance. During the 9:15 break, Sofia Martinez looked for Mia through the school corridors. They always met during break to talk about the morning classes and make plans for lunch. When Sofia couldn't find her best friend anywhere, she asked other classmates, but no one had seen Mia that day. I started to worry, because Mia never missed school without warning, Sofia explains. She was the most responsible person I knew. If she was going to be 5 minutes late, she would text me. When I didn't find her at break, I knew something was wrong. Sofia's concern intensified when she tried to call Mia's cell phone during lunch, and the call went straight to voicemail. Mia always answered the phone, especially during school hours when she knew it could be something important. Sofia then decided to call Maria Garcia to ask if Mia was sick at home. Sofia's call at 12:30 in the afternoon was the first moment the Garcia family realized something terrible had happened. Maria answered the phone expecting to hear her daughter's voice, but instead heard Sofia asking if Mia was home sick. My heart stopped when Sofia asked if Mia was here. Maria remembers from that moment that changed her life forever. I said, "What do you mean? Isn't she at school?" And Sofia said no one had seen Mia all day. It was like the ground had disappeared under my feet. Maria immediately called Carlos at work, who dropped everything and rushed home. They then called Diego, who also left work and joined his parents in a desperate search to try to understand what had happened. Together, they retraced the route Mia took every day to school, asking each neighbor if anyone had seen anything unusual. The family's initial search revealed that Mia had been seen walking normally until at least 7:25 in the morning, when she passed by the bakery. But after that point, it was as if she had simply vanished. No one had seen her arrive at school, and there were no signs of struggle or disturbance anywhere along her usual route. At 2 in the afternoon, when it became clear that Mia was nowhere obvious and that something serious had happened, Carlos Garcia called 911 to report his daughter's disappearance. The operator initially tried to reassure him, suggesting that Mia might have decided to skip school or be with friends. But Carlos insisted that his daughter would never do that without warning. I told that woman she didn't understand, Carlos remembers with frustration. My Mia wasn't the type of girl who just disappears like that. She would call if she was going to be 5 minutes late for dinner. Something very bad had happened. I could feel it in my heart. The first officer to respond was Officer Martinez, who arrived at the Garcia house at 3 in the afternoon. He conducted a preliminary interview with the family, gathering basic information about Mia, her habits, relationships, and the last time she had been seen. Although he tried to maintain a professional and calm tone, even he admitted that the circumstances were concerning for a girl as responsible as Mia appeared to be. Officer Martinez was very kind to us, Maria remembers. He said that in his experience, when a responsible student like Mia disappeared without explanation, it usually meant something serious had happened. He didn't want to give us false hopes. While Officer Martinez conducted the interview, Diego went out alone to do a more detailed search of Mia's school route. It was he who made the discovery that would transform the disappearance case into an active criminal investigation. At 4 in the afternoon, Diego found Mia's pink backpack abandoned in a bushy area about 3 blocks from home, well away from her normal route to school. The backpack was partially hidden under some branches, as if someone had tried to conceal it quickly. When Diego found it, his heart shattered. He knew Mia would never voluntarily abandon that backpack that contained all her most important school belongings. Seeing Mia's backpack thrown like that was the most frightening thing in my life, Diego recalls, his voice trembling. I knew at that moment that someone had done something terrible to my little sister. Mia took care of that backpack like it was her most precious treasure. Diego immediately called Officer Martinez, who instructed him not to touch anything else and mark the exact spot where he had found the backpack. An investigation team was sent to process the scene, and the backpack was carefully collected as evidence. The contents were intact: books, notebooks, lunch, wallet. But there was no sign of Mia. The discovery of the abandoned backpack officially transformed the case into a potential crime. Detective Linda Rodriguez was assigned to lead the investigation, and a wide search was organized for that same night. Community volunteers, Mia's classmates, and officers from various jurisdictions joined in a search operation that would continue for the next few days. The discovery of the backpack changed everything, explains Detective Rodriguez. Suddenly, we were no longer looking for a teenager who might have run away or gotten lost. We were looking for a crime victim, and time was working against us. While search teams combed through every square meter of the surroundings, the Garcia family lived the worst nightmare any parent can imagine. The house that just the morning before had been full of laughter and plans for the future was now plunged into an atmosphere of terror and despair that intensified with each hour that passed without news of Mia. The first night without Mia was the longest of the Garcia family's life. None of them could sleep, and they alternated between answering calls from friends and neighbors offering help and going out on the streets to look for any sign of their missing daughter and sister. It was the beginning of an 8-year journey that would test the limits of their resistance, faith, and family love. For 8 long years, the Garcia family lived in a limbo of hope and despair that few can truly understand. Mia's disappearance was not just the loss of a beloved daughter and sister. It was the collapse of everything they thought they knew about safety, justice, and how the world works. Each day that passed without news was renewed torture. Each false lead was a devastating emotional roller coaster. Maria Garcia never removed Mia's place from the dinner table. Every day for 8 years, she set a plate, glass, and utensils for her daughter, in an unshakable demonstration of faith that one day Mia would come home. Mia's room remained exactly as she had left it on the morning of March 15th. Clothes folded on the chair, books open on the study table, animal posters on the walls. I couldn't accept that she wasn't coming back, Maria explains through tears. Every night, I left the porch light on so Mia could find her way home. My friend said I needed to move on. But how does a mother move on when she doesn't know if her daughter is alive or dead? If she's suffering? Or if she needs help? Carlos plunged into work as a form of escape, but colleagues noticed he was never the same man again. He had lost weight, slept little, and was frequently seen looking at photos of Mia on his phone during breaks. On weekends, he joined any search group that was still looking for clues, even years after the police had reduced their efforts. My husband aged 20 years in those first months, Maria observes. He felt responsible for not protecting our daughter. As a traditional Mexican man, he thought it was his duty to keep the family safe. And when Mia disappeared, it was like he had failed at the most important thing in his life. But it was Diego who was most severely affected by Mia's disappearance. He abandoned his engineering studies and dedicated every free moment to searching for his sister. He learned about criminal investigation, studied similar cases, created detailed maps of possible locations where Mia could be, and established contact with families of other missing persons around the country. Diego became obsessed, Maria explains with concern. He covered his room walls with maps, photos, timelines, theories. He didn't date, didn't go out with friends, didn't live his own life. His entire existence revolved around finding Mia. I was worried we were going to lose both children. The official investigation produced few concrete clues in the first years. Detective Rodriguez and her team interviewed hundreds of people, followed dozens of leads, and investigated various theories about what could have happened to Mia. They examined the possibility that she had been a victim of kidnapping for human trafficking, a random crime, or someone she knew. Mia Garcia's case haunted me throughout my career, Detective Rodriguez admits. We investigated every lead, interviewed every person who could have relevant information. But Mia had simply disappeared without leaving practically any trace beyond that backpack. It was as if the earth had opened up and swallowed her. During the following years, there were several moments when the family thought they would finally have answers. In 2017, a young body was found in a lake 2 hours from Riverside, but DNA tests confirmed it wasn't Mia. In 2019, a woman called saying she had seen a young woman who looked like Mia working in a store in Nevada, but investigation revealed it was someone else. Each of these false hopes was like dying a little, Diego explains. For a moment, you think, finally, we're going to have answers. And then they discover it's not her. You're happy for that family that found their loved one. But at the same time, you're devastated because you still don't have answers about your own family. The Riverside community never forgot Mia Garcia. Every year on March 15th, vigils were organized at the school and in the city's central square. Her photo was posted on poles, school murals, and local businesses. The animal shelter where she volunteered created an annual scholarship program in her name for students interested in veterinary medicine. Mia became part of our city's collective consciousness, explains Principal Johnson from Riverside High. Even students who never knew her story. She represented lost innocence, the vulnerability we all prefer to pretend doesn't exist. Sophia Martinez, Mia's best friend, graduated from high school without her inseparable companion. She saved Mia's place at graduation with an empty chair and a white rose. Sophia went on to college, but never stopped wondering what would have happened if she had noticed earlier that Mia wasn't at school that day. I graduated, went to college, started my career, but there was always a piece of me that stayed frozen on that March day, Sophia reflects. I constantly wondered if I could have done something different, if I could have helped somehow. Guilt is a terrible thing to carry. In 2020, 5 years after the disappearance, Mia's case was officially reclassified as a cold case. This meant there was no longer active investigation, although the case remained technically open. For the Garcia family, this reclassification was another devastating blow. When they said they were going to stop actively looking for Mia, it was like they had given up on her, Carlos remembers with bitterness. I understood they had other cases, other crimes to solve. But for us, Mia was still out there somewhere, maybe needing help. Diego refused to accept the cold case status. He continued his own investigation using social media, contacts with other amateur investigators, and even hiring private detectives when he managed to save enough money. He created a detailed blog about Mia's case, which attracted attention from people interested in unsolved crimes around the world. I promised myself I would never stop looking, Diego declares with determination. It didn't matter if it took the rest of my life. I was going to find out what happened to my sister. She deserved justice, and our family deserved answers. The years passed slowly for the Garcia family. Mia's birthdays were observed. With sadness, family holidays were stained by the empty chair, and important life milestones like Diego finally graduating college in 2022, were bittersweet because Mia wasn't there to celebrate. But in September 2023, 8 years and 6 months after Mia Garcia had disappeared, a hiker named Tom Wilson was exploring a little-used trail in the National Forest about 30 kilometers from Riverside when he made a discovery that would change everything. Walking through a dense area of woods, Tom noticed something pink, partially buried under years of leaves and debris. At first, I thought it was trash. Someone who had thrown a bag or something like that in the forest, Tom recalls. But when I got closer, I saw it was a very old backpack, and there were other objects scattered around. There was something about the scene that gave me chills. Tom Wilson had no idea, but he had found Mia Garcia's remains, along with the pink backpack that Diego had discovered and that had subsequently disappeared from police files under mysterious circumstances. Along with the remains were clothes that matched what Mia was wearing on her last day, the dog keychain Diego had given her, and other personal belongings that would definitively confirm her identity. Tom Wilson's discovery would finally bring the answers the Garcia family had searched for 8 long years. But these answers would come accompanied by a truth more shocking than anyone could have imagined. Tom immediately called 911, and within an hour, the area was cordoned off as a crime scene. The forensic team that arrived at the scene confirmed that the remains were of a young woman, and the personal objects found, especially the distinctive dog keychain and the faded pink backpack, strongly suggested it was Mia Garcia. Detective Sarah Martinez, who had taken over the case when Detective Rodriguez retired, arrived at the scene at 3 in the afternoon. She had studied Mia's file for years, memorizing every detail, every clue, every theory. Seeing the belongings scattered around the small clearing in the woods, she immediately knew the Garcia family's nightmare was coming to an end, but not in the way they had hoped. Seeing that pink backpack after so long was one of the most emotional experiences of my career, Detective Martinez recalls. I had seen that backpack in hundreds of photos during my investigation of the case. Finding it finally, along with Mia's remains, was both a relief and a tragedy. Forensic analysis of the remains confirmed it was Mia Garcia. DNA tests compared with family samples were conclusive, and dental examination matched perfectly with Mia's dental records. But more importantly, bone analysis revealed evidence of trauma that confirmed Mia had been a victim of homicide. The bones told a terrible story, explains Dr. Robert Chen, the medical examiner responsible for the examination. There was clear evidence of trauma to the back of the skull, consistent with multiple blows from a blunt object. Mia had been brutally murdered. The news was delivered to the Garcia family on an October afternoon in 2023. Detective Martinez arrived at the Maple Street house accompanied by a counselor specializing in trauma. Knowing she was about to deliver information that would devastate, but also somehow free, a family that had lived in uncertainty for almost a decade. When I saw the 2 police cars parked in front of our house, I knew, Maria Garcia remembers from that moment. After 8 years of receiving false hopes, I knew from the way they walked to our door that this time it was real. My daughter had been found. The family's reaction was a complex mixture of relief, renewed devastation, and a thirst for justice that had intensified over the years. Finally, knowing what had happened to Mia brought a kind of closure, but also confirmed the worst fears they had carried for 8 years. On one hand, it was a terrible relief to know that Mia hadn't suffered for years, that she hadn't been kept in captivity or tortured, Diego explains through tears. But on the other hand, it confirmed that someone had taken her life brutally, and that person had been free for 8 years while we suffered without knowing the truth. But the discovery of Mia's remains was just the beginning of the revelation of the terrible truth. Forensic analysis of the objects found at the scene revealed evidence that would lead investigators directly to the killer, and the identity of that person would shock not only the Garcia family, but the entire Riverside community. Among Mia's belongings found in the woods was an object that didn't belong to her, a men's watch that had gotten caught on a root near the remains. The watch, although damaged by time and natural elements, still had a legible inscription on the back. To Robert with love. Thompson Family, 2010. Detective Martinez immediately began investigating the identity of Robert Thompson. What she discovered left her stunned. Robert Thompson was a former Riverside High School employee who had worked as a janitor from 2012 to 2016. He had full access to the school campus and knew the students' routines, including arrival and departure times. When we discovered the connection to the school, everything started to make sense, Detective Martinez explains. Thompson had privileged access to information about students, knew who walked alone to school, and had the freedom to move around the community without raising suspicion. The investigation revealed that Robert Thompson, 42 years old, had been fired from the school in 2016 for inappropriate behavior with female students. Several students had complained that he watched them inappropriately and made comments that made them uncomfortable. The school administration had dealt with the situation discreetly, firing Thompson but not reporting the behavior to authorities. It was a terrible systemic failure, admits former Principal Johnson, who had retired in 2018. We thought firing Thompson would be enough to protect our students. We never imagined he could have done something so horrible. And we certainly never imagined he had already committed a crime when we fired him. Subsequent investigations revealed that Thompson had developed a specific obsession with Mia Garcia. Colleagues remember him making comments about how she was a special girl and asking about her routine and extracurricular activities. At the time, these comments were interpreted as genuine interest from a school employee in the students, but now they took on a sinister meaning. Thompson always asked about certain girls, remembers Linda Martinez, who had been Mia's colleague and witnessed some of these comments. He asked what time they arrived, if they came alone, where they lived. At the time, we thought he was being friendly, but now we realize he was collecting information. The investigation revealed that on the morning of March 15, 2015, Thompson wasn't working at school. He had asked for time off for personal matters. Investigators theorized that he had planned the attack in advance, knowing the exact route Mia would take and the time she would be alone. Thompson had studied Mia's routine for months, Detective Martinez explains. He knew exactly where to intercept her, away from security cameras and witnesses. The attack was premeditated and calculated. Forensic evidence from the crime scene confirmed the investigators' theory. Besides the watch, masculine clothing fibers were found that correspond to the janitor uniform Thompson wore at school. DNA analysis of material found under Mia's nails matched samples obtained discreetly from Thompson after his identification as a suspect. Mia fought, Dr. Chen explains grimly. Forensic evidence shows she tried to defend herself. She scratched her attacker. And that's what allowed us to obtain enough DNA to make the definitive connection. In November 2023, Robert Thompson was arrested at his house in a Los Angeles suburb where he had moved after leaving Riverside. The arrest was coordinated by multiple police agencies, and Thompson was charged with first-degree murder with special circumstances, making him eligible for the death penalty in California. When we arrested Thompson, he didn't even try to deny it, Detective Martinez recalls. When we showed him the evidence, the watch, the DNA, the fibers. He completely broke down. He confessed everything. In his confession, Thompson revealed horrible details about the crime. He had followed Mia for several weeks, learning her routine and choosing the perfect location for the attack. On the morning of March 15th, he was waiting in a van parked when Mia passed by. He approached her under the pretext of needing help, and when she came close to help, he attacked her. Thompson said he never intended to kill her. Detective Martinez explains, although it's clear she doesn't believe this version. He claimed he just wanted to spend time with her, but when Mia started screaming and fighting, he panicked and hit her repeatedly with a tool he had in the van. After killing Mia, Thompson took her body to the woods, where it was found 8 years later. He buried the remains in a shallow grave and scattered the belongings around the area, thinking they would never be discovered. He then returned to Riverside, discarded Mia's backpack away from the crime scene to divert the investigation, and continued his normal life. The most disturbing thing about the confession was how Thompson continued living normally after killing Mia, Detective Martinez observes. He continued working at the school for another year, interacting with other students, knowing he had murdered an innocent girl. That level of coldness is truly psychopathic. Robert Thompson's trial began in March 2024, exactly 9 years after Mia Garcia's murder. The Garcia family was present every day of the trial, finally facing the man who had destroyed their lives and stolen Mia's future. Seeing Thompson for the first time was surreal, Diego recalls. For 8 years I had imagined what the monster who hurt my sister would look like. But he looked so normal, just an ordinary, middle-aged man. It was hard to accept that someone so ordinary could do something so horrible. The trial lasted 6 weeks. The prosecutor presented overwhelming forensic evidence, including DNA, clothing fibers, the watch, and Thompson's complete confession. The defense tried to plead temporary insanity, but forensic psychologists confirmed that Thompson was mentally competent at the time of the crime. The evidence against Thompson was incontestable, explains prosecutor David Teeters Wilson. We had DNA, physical evidence, a detailed confession, and a clear motive. The jury had no difficulty reaching a verdict. In May 2024, Robert Thompson was found guilty of first-degree murder with special circumstances. The jury recommended life imprisonment without the possibility of parole, avoiding the death penalty due to the nature of the specific circumstances of the case. During the sentencing hearing, the Garcia family finally had the opportunity to directly confront Mia's killer and tell him about the devastating impact his crime had had on their lives. "You didn't just kill my daughter," Maria Garcia told Thompson during her victim impact statement. "You killed our entire family. You stole 8 years of our lives with your lie, your silence, your cowardice." Mia was 16 years old. She wanted to be a veterinarian. She wanted to help animals, have a family, live her life. You took all that from her, and from us. Diego also spoke during the hearing, describing how the obsession with finding Mia had consumed his life for 8 years. "You stole my sister, my best friend, my inspiration," he told Thompson. "But you also stole 8 years of my own life. I didn't date, didn't make friends, didn't live my youth because I was obsessed with finding answers you could have given at any time." Carlos Garcia was the last to speak, and his words were the most powerful. "A man protects his family. For 8 years, I blamed myself for not protecting my daughter. Now I know there was no way to protect her from a predator like you, who abused the trust our community placed in you. Mia trusted you because you worked at her school. You used that trust to kill her. Robert Thompson was sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole on June 15, 2024. He will never again be eligible for freedom and will spend the rest of his life paying for what he did to Mia Garcia. Today, more than 1 year after the discovery of Mia's remains and the arrest of her killer, the Garcia family is slowly learning to live with the answers they searched for so long. Knowing the truth brought a form of peace, but also confirmed the worst fears they carried for 8 years. Part of me always hoped Mia was still alive somewhere, Maria admits. Even after all those years, part of me hoped she would show up at our door one day. Knowing she died on that first day, that she never had a chance to grow up, is devastating. But it's also a relief to know she didn't suffer for years. Diego finally managed to begin rebuilding his own life. He returned to school to finish his engineering degree, started dating, and is slowly learning to live for himself beyond the search for Mia. Mia always told me she wanted me to be happy, he explains. Now that I know she had justice, I can begin to honor her memory by living the life she wanted me to live. The family organized a proper funeral for Mia in August 2024, finally giving her the rest she deserved. Hundreds of people attended, including classmates who were now adults, retired teachers, and community members who had never forgotten the 16-year-old girl who wanted to be a veterinarian. The funeral was beautiful and heartbreaking at the same time. Sofia Martinez, Mia's best friend, recalls, "We could finally say goodbye to her properly. It was the closure we all needed." The animal shelter where Mia had volunteered expanded the scholarship program in her memory, now providing funds for underprivileged students interested in veterinary medicine. Riverside High School also established more rigorous safety protocols for employees, ensuring that background checks would be more thoroughly conducted and that behavioral concerns would be reported to appropriate authorities. Mia's legacy is that other children are safer now. Current Principal Jennifer Rodriguez explains, "We learned terrible lessons from what happened to her, and we are determined to ensure it never happens again." Mia Garcia's story is a heartbreaking reminder that evil sometimes hides in plain sight, masqueraded as normalcy and trust. But it's also a story about the power of family love, persistence, and the refusal to give up when someone you love is missing. Mia was taken from us when she was just a child, Carlos Garcia reflects. She never had the chance to fulfill her dreams, to become the veterinarian she wanted to be, to have her own family. But her memory lives on in every animal that is saved by the scholarship program in her name, in every safety measure that protects other students, and in the love our family shares. The Garcia family learned that healing doesn't mean forgetting, and that justice doesn't always bring immediate peace. But they also learned that love is stronger than loss, that truth is more powerful than lies, and that memories of someone special can never be taken away. Mia Garcia left for school on a March morning in 2015 and never came home. But after 8 years of uncertainty, her family finally knows the terrible truth about what happened to her. And although that truth is painful, it also brought the closure they needed to begin to heal and honor Mia's memory the way she deserved. Robert Thompson will spend the rest of his life in prison, but Mia's spirit lives on in the hearts of those who loved her, in the lives of animals that are helped by the program in Eat We. Her name, and in the community's commitment to protect other children from the kind of evil that took her life too early. The pink backpack that once carried Mia's dreams and homework now sits in evidence storage. But her true legacy lives in memories of a young woman who wanted nothing more than to help animals and make the world a better place. And in that, Mia Garcia achieved exactly what she set out to do.